We are live on Facebook. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. It is time for ALZChats. It's been a little bit, and we are so excited to be back. And my name is Kristen Casado. I'm the Director of Communications and also the Research Champion for the Region 11, which is the New England area, but I'm Director of Communications for the Connecticut chapter. And I am so pleased today to have two of our wonderful volunteers with us today, going to share some really interesting insights. This is Black History Month, and these two members of our DE&I, which is Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee, which is a relatively new committee with us, and it's really the focus is to really get to the underserved communities, and we'll be talking about that as well. So let me introduce them, and then we can begin. Maisie Russell is AVP Corporate Tax at Travelers, and also a member of our Women and Else group, and also a member of our Connecticut chapter board of advisors. And we are so proud and happy. And Maisie's a walker, and she's been involved in volunteering for a number of years with us, a nice spokesperson. So thank you, Maisie. And then Jonah Francis, who's the president and owner of Pansy Home Care Services. He is a volunteer community educator with us. He's a walker. He's a volunteer as well. And so we are so pleased that they're both here together today. Thanks, you guys, for joining us here.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having me. It's definitely my pleasure.
I want to kind of level set and talk about why this is really important. It is important because maybe some folks don't know about this, but according to the Alzheimer's Association, Black African Americans are 2 times as likely to develop Alzheimer's, and Latinos are 1.5 times as likely to develop Alzheimer's than older whites. So talking about that, we do know some of the reasons why this is happening in regards to some of the research showing that people coming forth with some pre-existing conditions, right? So maybe some heart issues, or some blood sugar issues, those kinds of things. But there isn't enough known, hence the reason why we need more people represented in clinical trials. So let me just start with one of you guys to kind of talk a little bit about why this issue is important to you and what we think we need to do to get into more of these communities across Connecticut and really across the nation.
So Mrs. Russell, would you like to kick things off, or would you like for me to start?
Sure, I will go ahead. This is extremely important to me because it's very near and dear to my heart, like I always say. My mom had this disease and she had it for 15 years. And if I recall, and I'll just throw this out too, African Americans and Hispanics are less likely than whites to have a diagnosis and tends to be in a later stage. So my mom, we noticed the change in her, and we brought it to her doctor. And he was a little bit dismissive about it, right? Basically saying, oh no, she's worked hard, just let her be. And we said, no, something is definitely wrong. And because we were just so persistent, we encouraged him to have her tested. She was tested, so she was diagnosed in her early stage. And because of that, we also demanded the best care for her. And she got the best care, and she lived comfortably with the disease for 15 years. So basically, all the things that I learned, and thanks to the Alzheimer's Association, I reached out to them. They provided a lot of detail. I did a lot of my research. So basically, I was able to even work with her aides throughout all her stages, change and adapt to her changes. And because of that, I just want to share some of my passion to try to help my community, because if I did not educate myself, I would not, or as a family, we would not have been able to get her what she needed at an early stage and adapt. And we basically were able to keep her where we wanted her to be throughout her journey.
So I think that's amazing and very lucky and good for you to step up in that way. Jonah, when we talked the other day, kind of in some of the ideas talking about this is not something that every family can do, and talk about some of the reasons and some of the barriers that might happen culturally to be able to do what you hope is the best care, right, for your loved one.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm also an industry professional, as you stated earlier with my company. We care for individuals living with Alzheimer's and dementia. And what we see is a lot of times most resources go to individuals that are educated and actually understands and knows what resources they can seek out. Education being a very high barrier to number one, income, and then income being a realistic threshold and barrier to not only healthcare, but access to healthcare benefits as well. So because of those two things, right off the bat, that limits our understanding of Alzheimer's and dementia. And what we have decided to do overall, right, through the steering committee, the Alzheimer's Association has done a wonderful job, even before the steering committee, of trying to link with community resources in order to be able to gain access into different communities and community leaders to do the thing that we need to do first, which is to start to educate the communities, populations, Black and Brown people need further education so we can do better by our loved ones.
Why do you think it is, either one of you guys can answer this, that people are, we try to reduce the stigma, right? As that, try not to be embarrassed by this disease. This is nothing we can control, although we do know more and more. And those of you who followed us, there's a lot of research on healthy living and lifestyle things that you could do to reduce your risk. It's not like you can just decide, I'm not going to get it. You can work as hard as you can, but it's challenging. My mother had it. A lot of people have this disease. And so is it that we aren't talking about it as much still? Do you think we are starting to talk about it more? How do you break down it's not something to be embarrassed by, please reach out for help? How do you get past that kind of thing with some families and different things culturally, do you guys think?
So if you will, I think it starts with us being able to, number one, listen and understand the different ways that communities communicate, right? Their stereotypes. I know for me, my family is Jamaican, so we're from a third world country, and the education, the information, the beliefs are completely different than they are up here in America for Caucasian Americans, if you will. So with that being said, we have to understand what those languages are around Alzheimer's or individuals that are experiencing memory loss, because not all memory loss or dementia or Alzheimer's, right? So we have to understand what those languages are before we can even attempt to start trying to change the language and to actually give the education so that we can, be able to help that out a little bit better. We have to listen first and understand the language and the ways of communication.
Absolutely.
And I also think that as a community, sometimes we tend not to trust others and also don't want to share what's going on because I'll use the word like very private, so just want to basically keep that. So what we can do, and we're doing that as the Alzheimer's Association, is trying to understand the community and get out into the community. And I recall a few years ago, I actually went to an AME church in New Haven one Sunday morning because that's where the congregants are, and to try to talk to them. And for us to see someone like me talking about the disease so openly and sharing information about Alzheimer's Association is basically going into the community and connecting with the individuals where they are and encourage them to talk about it. So I think that's what we also can do and continue to do more of those.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're spot on, right? People like what they can understand. And a lot of times, sometimes it's you speaking their language. So I think a lot of times what we're doing is we're tapping into these communities and community leaders, because those community leaders can speak their language, or at least speak a language that is more understanding, compassion, and endearing, and connecting towards the communities as a whole.
So we, as the, and this is a great segue to talk about this, you guys, and as listening is really the key, right? You can't just jump into a community, especially if you are a totally different color, right? A totally different, hey, here's all the information. I think it's important to understand that everyone has to listen. And you're right. So we have these events called community forums. And I know through the DE&I committee, we're setting up various community forums. Does one of you guys want to share some of the things that we're doing, through that committee and through the outreach?
Right, so I'll just jump in and go ahead. So this committee basically is made up of volunteers and staff from across the Connecticut chapter. Here, I'm speaking about Connecticut. The goal is to improve the health equity and the outcomes in the underserved community as it relates to Alzheimer's and all other dementias. So as a committee member, we're currently identifying new potential agencies statewide that the chapter can partner with and actually go into the community and do some education. So as we go through as a community, as a committee, basically we're developing and we will be leading, strategic initiatives and basically just getting out there, understanding and creating forums so we can actually listen and talk. And basically this is providing also more awareness, right? And one example that I want to provide of an organization, and I'll just say nationally, the association is working with the AME Church on a national level, and also locally here in Hartford, working with like the Mount Avery Baptist Church, the Hispanic Federation. I'm just naming a few, there are a lot more. So that's what we're doing, is getting there, connecting with some of these organizations. And as committee members, it's for us to connect to the organizations that we are part of. And actually, so we can work with those organizations to do some forums and some education. Is all about awareness and start there.
Right. I think that some other things that, we're doing, reaching out to the Bosnian community, LGBTQ. So that's a whole other issue, talking about something that people who are, and we have research in this as well, that a lot of folks who are LGBTQ plus are also not coming forward, right? Because they're not getting the attention and the diagnoses maybe that they might get. So we've talked about this before, but discrimination is a huge barrier. That came out as a special report last year in our facts and figures from the Alzheimer's Association. That discrimination is a huge barrier to getting care. So what other ideas do you guys have, or what other things that you think that we need to do to try to get over this, to try to fix this?
Again, as an industry professional, what I still see to this day, which is kind of mind-blowing to me, is the lack of education for other industry professionals. I have walked into minute clinics where clients of mine has needed attention on specific injuries or just things that's going on with them, and was able to give a heads up about the clients' diagnoses before they walked in the door. And unfortunately, just the heads up wasn't enough. It was apparent that education was still needed because, when it comes to memory care, dementia care, Alzheimer's care, there is a special language that you have to speak. There is a way about communication that you have to be abreast to in order to be able to communicate appropriately, and even how you are going to position your body, your posture, how to help them. All of these things plays a part to how we're going to successfully communicate with someone living with dementia. So again, just from a professional standpoint, I think our professionals need further education around how to assist clients with these type of with these type of diagnoses. It's a very special process, and it should be handled that way.
I agree. That's a really great point. Not everybody in every field is versed on this. Not everyone is versed and knows the things that you were talking about, Jonah, the get down to their level, because you're not standing over them, speaking softly and slowly, eye contact, important things about communication, right? Maisie, you're shaking your head, right? Important things that not everybody knows, and you sometimes don't know it until you go through it. Right.
And that just brought up something, back when my mom is now deceased, but I remember in what I learned, but from attending some of the seminars and the meetings, basically was how to communicate with her. So those were some of the things that I actually taught the aides, basically not to just go over her and to do all those different things. So that's why the education is so, and I just tell you this, I remember them saying, even put her meal on a white plate so you can actually, the difference in colors and everything. So I did that, and even transitioning from, say, as an example, from a tile to a rug, if you see some hesitance when in doing that, there's a lot going on there. So I was able to actually train. So that's why this is so important, to actually try to break some of that down.
Yeah, Joni, you are a community educator as well. Want to share some of the different things, some of the different classes, or some of the different things that you like to focus on when you do the community education? And FYI, thank you to all the volunteers who do this, who do everything for us. We can't do anything without our volunteers. We're so grateful. But our community educator is kind of a new program a couple of years ago where we have volunteers who train and are able to actually present the programs like 10 signs, that kind of thing.
So of course, there's the 10 warning signs, which is really one of the most introductory level educations that we provide. And then of course, there's understanding dementia behaviors. There are effective communication with dementia. And there's just a plethora of other courses that we teach. I believe right now as a community educator, we're offering, I believe it's 6 courses that we teach to the public at large. And these are courses that we actually spend time with going through, familiarizing ourselves with, so that it's not just you're sitting down and you're reading off these courses. I mean, even though our classes has gone virtually for the most part since COVID, I mean, I'm still getting a whole bunch of interaction from people that we're communicating to. And a lot of times the reason for that is because they're in the class, mostly because they're either assisting someone that's living with dementia, or they have a loved one that's living with Alzheimer's and dementia. So they want to be there for them. They want to get that information so that they can better understand and assist their loved ones and have a better connection as well. So that's what I'm seeing. It's just as intuitive, cooperative as some of the what's the word I'm looking for here? When we get everyone together and they just kind of share and we just lead the group.
The support groups?
Yes, it's almost just as collaborative as the support groups, because again, families get on there or individuals get on there and they're sharing their experiences as we're moving through. So it's not just to sit down and listen. It's really collaborative between the presenter and then the individuals that are on the meeting.
Right. Maisie, anything to add?
Yeah, I just have to say, I really encourage, anyone who's going through this, and also if you have family members or even friends, to encourage them to go to the Alzheimer's website and see all the different things like Jonah is mentioning, and all the different groups and what's going there. It's virtual, so you can participate, because what I just mentioned, some of the things, that's how I learned some of those things, right? By participating and the discussions, and you're just so amazed. And sometimes just listening, that you might think your loved one is in such a bad state, but when you listen to someone else, but the thing is, as a group, you're there to discuss and to share and to support each other. So I really encourage anyone listening to us today, friends, family, just encourage them to just take advantage of the resources. I am a living witness of the huge benefit of all those resources. So
that's amazing. I think one of the things that we were talking about before, again, with education and then income, it's also time, right? Education and income are a true barometer for the time that we're able to invest into these sort of things, which is why us being on this call here today, and us being a part of the steering committee and figuring out strategies, actual ways that we're going to try and make an impact, we're going to try and break into the communities, is so important, because everyone's time is valuable. And of course, everyone has a different threshold of time that they're able to stem towards different resources that we provide through the Alzheimer's Association. So I second that, Ms. Russell. If time is also of really limit for you, one thing that you can do is go onto the website. Those same classes that I teach as a community educator are also on the website. And the great thing about it is you don't have to, start the class all over again. You can do whatever amount that, you have the time for in that sitting, and then come right back to it later once you create an account for yourself and start right back up where you left off.
That's excellent. I could have said it better myself. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so let me just really quickly run through some things that we do have to offer. So absolutely, starting where Jonah just left off, alz.org/CT. You can go on there and you can find classes online where you can watch anytime. So if you are done with your second job, or you are night shift, whatever it is, and you've got between 7 and 7:45 to watch something, or 7:30, pop online and you can watch something. Or several of us have put things in the chat ALZ.org/CRF is our community resource finder. Those are all the classes. And we didn't bring this up, but this is all at no charge. These classes, these support groups, the 800 number, they're all at no charge to you, thanks to the generous donations of our walkers and our donors and people who raise money for us the longest day all throughout the year. The money goes to help us take care of and serve and educate the public. That's where the money goes, and research to find a cure. So those classes are very important. The support groups, they're day and night. There are classes for support groups for people who are spouses, support groups for adult children, support groups for people living with the disease, support groups for people in different stages, middle stage caregivers, late stage caregivers. There are so many things. When you call the 800 number, you could actually have an entire hour where you get a guidance. It's a care consultation where you're walked through the process of, here's how you start trying to put your life back together after you get hit with this diagnosis. So there are so many things that you can do by calling our helpline and going online. And, you know, if you're lucky, you may get a Maisie or a Jonah speaking to your group, because they are stellar volunteers and stellar representatives for us. But that's all available to everyone. And we just want to make sure everyone knows that. And also, we are still looking for more volunteers, you know, to get involved with not only community education and not only our various committees, but also getting involved with our walks and our longest day. You know, we have 6 walks this fall across the state. So if you guys are interested in becoming a volunteer, we need volunteer advocates as well. So let us know, you know, let us know, run support groups. Let us know if you can do this for us. We'd love it. And it's, I don't know, Maisie, do you find, I like to use the word empowered. I feel like when you get involved in something that you've been through, what do you think about that?
Yes, I am so empowered. And so that's why I'm here. I've been a participant of the walk for many years. I also chaired the Hartford Walk a few years ago. And there's nothing better than that morning of the walk to see thousands and thousands of individuals supporting the organization and coming out. You know, full transparency, you know, it's emotional too, but it is emotional in that you get all this support. So I encourage everyone to participate, and there are walks all over the state. So it's not just in Hartford, there's New Haven and a bunch of other cities that you can actually, you know, join a walk and support. It's just it's so powerful. I am so empowered when I go through all this. And also when you've been through it too, like I've been, and I know I have a whole community of individuals out there in my demographic, right? You feel so much more empowered. I'm so empowered that even I went to the national conference once and I was so empowered. I actually even spoke to Harry John about diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Nice.
So I'm that empowered that I will actually speak up. So
of course, and I do not expect anything else from you, my dear. So that's wonderful. Harry Johnson is our CEO of the national organization, and we are a national organization, but we are the Connecticut chapter. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap this up. We've chatted about some wonderful things. Jonah, I'll go you first with any sort of last words here.
Yeah. So I would definitely recommend, you know, utilizing the Alzheimer's website, ALZ.org, as a wonderful reference for yourself. For family members, friends that might be in need of some assistance. But not only that, it's great to volunteer. And we were talking about being empowered. I mean, the staff, they support so much. Esther is my direct coach. I like to call her coach. So she is fantastic. So not only did she, you know, walk in a lot of the individual shoes, but she has also, you know, been, you know, just a book of knowledge when it comes to ALZ and the organization as a whole. So they empower us. Esther makes me feel like an all-star coach. The whole 9 thing, or presenter, communicator, the whole 9 yards. She's fantastic. So, you know, you're not on your own. You really, truly do have the support from the community at large, and of course, ALZ and all of their staff. including
No,
you.
I don't have much to add. You've covered everything there, Jonah, and basically just take advantage of everything. And Kristen, I know I'm just going to ask you to do this because you mentioned the 800 number quite a few times. Can you just say it out loud?
Absolutely, absolutely. Anybody
Exactly.
has any questions about dementia, Alzheimer's, or any other form of dementia, or any questions about anything that we talked about today, please call the 800 number. We did put it in the chat. It's 1-800-272-3900, and you can call it at any time. It's on all our stuff. It's online. If you just Google Alzheimer's Association, the helpline will come up. So please reach out because we're here for you. And that's the whole point. We don't want you to have to go through this alone. And that's why we're so grateful to volunteers like Maisie and Jonah for being on our DE&I committee and really getting to communities that don't know that we exist and don't know that we're here and ready and willing to help. So thanks, you guys. I greatly appreciate everything. Maisie Russell, Jonah Francis, keep up the good work. We're so grateful. And thank you everyone for watching ALZChats. And this fortunately is going to live right here on Facebook so people can watch it later on. So that is good news. Thanks everybody. And
Thank you.
we'll see you guys
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.